I know the story I'm about to tell might make a lot of people angry, shocked, or even refuse to believe it. A father who used violence to teach a mother who stood by in silence, and a brother who turned our family into a battlefield of honor. But this isn't a movie. This is my life. I used to think that staying silent was the way to survive. But then I realized if I don't tell the truth, the person who caused all the pain will rewrite the story however he wants. And this is my story, a journey out of the darkness, losing everything, to finally find myself. Chapter 1: Raising Wolves. Killing Sheep. A Cold-Blooded Childhood. I knew something was wrong with my father from a very young age. My dad wasn't the kind of man who'd hug his kids or tell bedtime stories. Not at all. He was the type who'd drag his sons out of bed at 5 a.m. every morning for warrior training, and that didn't mean morning exercise, it meant fighting. My brother Marcus and I were ordered to punch each other until someone bleeds. If I cried, or worse, tried to shield my face too much, he'd send me out into the freezing backyard in nothing but my underwear, and make me hold up concrete bricks above my head. Men don't feel the cold, he'd roar like a wartime general while I shivered, lips turning blue. I always thought this was insane, but Marcus lived for it. He was my dad's pride and joy. By the time he was 12, Marcus willingly slept on the concrete floor, claiming that mattresses make men weak. He'd do push-ups until he puked, then keep going, all to the cheers of my father, who'd record the whole thing and post it to Facebook with captions like, "This is how you raise wolves, not sheep." As for me, I chose a different way to prove myself. I studied hard, got straight A's, captained the debate team, tutored struggling classmates after school, and even helped launch a life skills program for our school. But when I brought my report card home, my dad tore it up in front of me and said something I'll never forget: "Grades are for the weak who can't throw a punch. Yesterday, your brother broke a kid's nose. Now that's an achievement." I remember the day Marcus turned into something I didn't recognize as my brother anymore. It was Thanksgiving. I was 16. The whole family was eating dinner when suddenly Marcus stood up and punched himself straight in the face. Blood spurted out of his nose and onto the turkey in the middle of the table. He grinned, teeth stained red, and said his usual line: "Pain is just weakness leaving the body." My dad applauded like it was the greatest show he'd ever seen. My mom, she just kept eating. From then on, I started putting on a mask. I wrapped my hands like I was getting ready to box, but I only went through the feed motions. I faked excitement every time my dad played those Navy SEAL documentaries. I even dated a girl named Brittany, a party brawler, just to prove I was alpha enough for him. But behind all those performances, I quietly went to see a therapist. I secretly applied to colleges as far away as possible, and eventually I got into Berkeley, majoring in social work, specializing in toxic masculinity and childhood trauma. Funny, isn't it? The day I got on that plane and left that house behind, I didn't cry. I didn't even look back. There was only one thing in my mind: I will never become like them. What I didn't know was leaving was only the beginning. Chapter 2: A New Life, and an Invitation from the Old Hell. I left home at 18, carrying nothing but a single suitcase, a scholarship, and a promise to myself that I would never go back. The years that followed felt like living in an entirely different world. I studied at Berkeley, graduating in social work with a minor in toxic masculinity, a choice my father would no doubt call progressive stupidity. I loved my job. I worked with at-risk teens, kids who grew up in the same kind of fear I once knew. I built workshops on how to be a man without turning into a brute, on healing, instead of continuing the cycle of endless violence. The kids believed me because I had been there too. I had a small apartment, a rescue dog named Tofu, and an amazing girlfriend, Sophia. She taught ballet, was gentle, funny, and the first person in my life who never made me feel like I had to perform. We lived a normal life, but to me it was heaven. No more waking up to screaming. No more blood on the floor. No more twisted tests of courage. And then the phone rang. My father called something that almost never happened. His voice was forced, awkwardly cheerful. Marcus is about to have a ceremony. I want you to come. I figured it was some martial arts award or one of those garbage things they always made a big deal about. I didn't plan on going. But Sophia looked at me, put her hand on my shoulder, and said, "Maybe they've changed, I'll go with you." I knew it was a foolish hope, but a part of me, the part that was still that 10-year-old boy begging his father to stop making him do push-ups in the snow, still wanted to believe, still wanted my dad one day to see me as a real person. So I agreed. We booked a flight back home. On the way, I kept joking to keep myself calm. Who knows, maybe Marcus is being honored for breaking the record for push-ups on a bed of nails. Sophia laughed, but there was something in her eyes that let me know. She was worried too. I didn't know that I was about to walk back into the very house where every nightmare began, and this time, there would be real blood. Chapter 3. That night, I almost got killed by my father with a baseball bat. I never thought the day I came home to visit my family would be the day I'd have to run for my life. The moment my father saw me, the fake smile instantly vanished. He scowled, looking at me with the same contempt someone might have for a cockroach crawling out of a drain. "What's this? You're even weaker than before. Look at you like a woman." I froze. And then, as always, he didn't stop at words. He grabbed my wrist, squeezing tight. "Feel that the hand of a weakling, Marcus? Show him what a real man's hand looks like." Marcus held up both hands and I nearly vomited on the spot. 10 twisted fingers, knuckles swollen and deformed, covered in thick scars. I train with broken glass, bro. Now I punch and don't feel a thing. Cool, right? I looked around. The table was covered with weapons knives, broken glass bottles, even a baseball bat with nails hammered into it. Then my father announced, "Tonight the two of you are going to fight for real. Whoever wins gets my respect. The loser doesn't deserve to be my son." I laughed a dry, hollow laugh. "Are you insane? I'm not staying here." I turned to leave, but he blocked the door. "You were never my son. You're a defective product, a weakling controlled by some ballerina." I clenched my fists, trying to stay calm. But then he picked up the baseball bat. Or maybe, "This bat will make you a man." I barely managed half a step back before he swung the bat at my head. Instinct made me duck. There was a thunderous crack as the bat smashed into the wall. Plaster rained down on my shoulders. Sophia stood frozen behind me, her face ghost white. I shouted, "Sophia, call the police." Right then Marcus lunged at me. "Don't worry, bro. I'll go easy." Like the old days. I'm not joking. He was dead serious. Both of them were. I turned and ran toward the kitchen and felt a brutal blow to my shoulder. The bat had connected. Something tore inside. I didn't feel pain, just heat. Blood started soaking through my shirt. I grabbed a stool and hurled it at my father. He dodged, but it gave me a few seconds to sprint for the back door. Before I could unlatch it, Marcus kicked me down. The two of them piled on, kicking and stomping. I curled up, arms over my head, feeling exactly like I did as a kid, back when warrior training was our daily ritual. Then, suddenly, they stopped. The sound of police sirens echoed outside. Sophia had escaped and returned with a squad of cops. I lay there, my shirt soaked with blood, gasping for breath. The police burst in. My father was still shouting, ranting about real masculinity, destroyed by weak, progressive cowards. Marcus quickly switched back to his innocent mode, telling the cops we were just sparring, like when we were kids. I laughed a laugh with no joy in it at all. I had dreamed of coming home hoping to see my family change. They did change. From violence to brutality, from obsession to madness. And me, the son who once escaped, now found himself dragged right back into that pit, this time nearly with no way out. Chapter 4. My Family Fights Back, by Smearing Me. I thought after that night everything would finally start to end. My father was arrested. I was injured but alive. Sophia was holding my hand in the emergency room. The police had taken statements. There was evidence, witnesses, and bruises all over my body. Naively, I thought justice would do its job. I didn't know physical blows were only the opening act. The main event would be psychological warfare, and this time, they played it well. The next morning, I woke up to over 20 missed calls and dozens of messages from relatives. I'd almost forgotten I was still in the family group chat. The youngest has gone crazy. Getting your own father arrested. Shameful. All that studying just to turn on your own father. I scrolled down and saw who sent those messages, Marcus. He'd posted in the group saying I was the one who lost control, the one who attacked Dad. That Dad had to defend himself. That I'd been brainwashed by all that cheap psychology crap from college. The most painful thing, some people believed it. An aunt I'd once thought was understanding sent me a message. If you're not feeling well, you should get help instead of hurting your own father like this. I felt like I was drifting out of reality. Then came another punch, this time from my mother. She appeared on Facebook. Smiling softly, she posted an old photo of our family, hugging when I was little with the caption, "Our family used to be so happy." Sometimes a lost child just needs love, not hatred. Hundreds of likes, comments pouring in with sympathy. People called her the poor mother betrayed by her own son. And me? What was I? The ungrateful child. The messed up one. The traitor. And then, like a small storm gathering strength, the consequences started rolling in. Sophia called me from the hospital. Her breathing was rushed. Panicked. Someone had slashed all 4 of her car's tires in the staff parking lot. No cameras caught anything. No one saw a thing. An hour later, I got a call from the youth support center where I worked. We just received an anonymous call. A friend says you have a history of violence against your father. We need to review your leave of absence. I could barely speak. I'd just been attacked, and now even my job was at risk. Right then, my mom sent me a message. You're destroying this family. Did that master's degree teach you how to kill your own father? I didn't know if I wanted to cry or scream. Maybe both. It felt like I was standing in a fire, and everyone I cared about was pouring on more gasoline. Sophia, the only person still by my side, was starting to truly worry. I saw the look in her eyes every time the phone rang. She jumped when my father appeared on Facebook, taking a selfie in front of our house. Still using that same old caption, worried about my youngest son's mental health. I still love him. Love, what kind of love involves swinging a spiked bat at your own child's head? I began to feel myself sinking into quicksand. The more I struggled, the deeper I sank. Every time I spoke up, they called me a liar. Every time I stayed silent, they said I couldn't defend myself. This was no longer just a fight between father and son. It was a whole family machine, turning against the one who dared to tell the truth. I thought I'd escaped that house. But it turns out no matter how far I ran, they still knew how to pound on my door, worm their way into my life, and take everything from me one piece at a time. Chapter 5, When I Fought Back. Using their own methods, I used to believe that justice went hand in hand with truth, that as long as you had evidence, a statement, a few wounds, some photos, the truth would eventually come out. But the deeper I sank into this family nightmare, the more I realized justice is an information war, and I was losing. So I decided to change tactics. I went back to my old house where my parents still lived, not to make peace, but to plant a recorder. I told myself it was for self-defense, to have evidence if they kept lying. But another part of me knew I was stepping right into their game manipulation setups, traps. The tiny recorder was placed behind a picture frame in the living room, right where Dad and Marcus would sit and have their family strategy sessions. I left, said nothing, didn't look back. A few days later, I listened to the first recording. My father's voice came through cold and sharp as a blade scraping stone. He's weak, and the weak don't deserve to exist as men. I didn't hit him to kill, but to fix. Then Marcus cut in, practically hissing through his teeth. As long as we get him to lose his job, lose his girlfriend, lose trust, he'll collapse on his own. We don't have to lay another finger on him. I went numb. This wasn't family. This was a calculated campaign of destruction, organized, strategic, step by step. The very next day, I transferred the recording to a hard drive, made 3 backup copies, sent one to my lawyer, one to my girlfriend, and one I stored in a bank safety deposit box. No longer a victim, I started gathering more evidence. I accessed footage from the neighbor's security camera, which had captured my father loitering outside my house for hours before the attack. I traced the anonymous emails sent to my workplace. Through their IP addresses, they led right back to a very familiar place, my mother's home address. I checked Marcus's message logs and found he had contacted 3 acquaintances in the journalism field, leaking information about me along with internal documents from my sealed high school records. I felt like an unwilling detective in my own life. Every time I uncovered another piece of the puzzle, part of me wanted to go insane. But another part, colder, more patient, felt satisfied. It was like I was slowly unmasking a monster that outsiders still called Dad. But right then, just when I thought I was regaining control, Sophia burst into tears in the kitchen. She said, "You're becoming them." I didn't get it at first, but then she explained that I'd yelled at her just because she bought the wrong kind of yogurt. I'd even used the exact words my father once hurled at my mother. "Can't you even get something that simple right?" I was stunned. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. I had collected enough evidence. I was playing by their rules, but in return, I was losing myself. For the first time in my life, I understood how Marcus felt. The feeling of being twisted, forced, drilled into believing pain is good, weakness is a sin, and then becoming nothing but a tool of destruction. I'd promised myself I would never become a tool, so now I had to choose: keep fighting with hatred or find another way? But is there really another way when your opponent doesn't play by any rules? I don't know. All I know is this battle is just beginning. Chapter 6. Justice or just myself? I kept thinking about the question Sophia asked me the other day, the one that's been stuck in my throat ever since. What are you willing to sacrifice to win? At first I thought I knew the answer. I was ready to give up my good reputation, ready to be misunderstood by the world, ready to play a little dirty, if that's what it took. But it wasn't like that. I started to see myself warping. No longer the idealistic social worker, no longer the calm, steady boyfriend. I was turning into a mirror image of my father, only in a suit with a master's degree and skilled at manipulating words. Silently, I sent the recording of my father and Marcus plotting to destroy me psychologically to my lawyer. I installed IP tracking software for the anonymous emails sent to my workplace. I hired a cybersecurity expert to try to recover the original emails my father sent to his journalist acquaintances, slandering me. A few days later, the expert sent me a chilling email. All the articles about you were written by your own father, under the guise of a heartbroken dad, and sent to familiar reporters. Some refused. Others published right away. The wound from that baseball bat never hurt as much as this, but not in my shoulder, in my heart. I also received a strange message from Marcus's ex-girlfriend. She sent me a secretly recorded video of my father and Marcus at his old office where they discussed using Sophia to attack me. As long as we make him believe that girl betrayed him, he'll self-destruct, my father. Said his voice, icy cold. That woman told me she couldn't stay silent any longer. She'd once loved Marcus, but now all she felt was fear. I thanked her and realized I finally had the ultimate weapon in my hands. But then I looked at Sophia, asleep on the sofa, arms wrapped around her stomach from stress. She'd just lost her job for standing up for me in front of her boss, who by coincidence was one of my father's loyal clients. I realized I was dragging her into a swamp I wasn't sure I could escape myself. That was when I thought about ending it all, not giving up, but choosing one final battle, win or lose it, would be the last. I set up a camera in the living room and began recording a video explaining everything. I didn't ask anyone to take my side. I didn't assign blame. I just told the truth, exactly what had happened. Then I sent the video to a nonprofit organization specializing in protecting victims of family violence. I knew one of their executive directors. She'd been my classmate in the MSW program. She replied immediately, "We'll stand behind you. But you have to weather the first storm." That storm came faster than I expected. 3 days later, Marcus appeared on a popular podcast, sobbing as he talked about his unstable younger brother and a father betrayed just for wanting to make his son a real man. But I was ready. I sent all the recordings, videos, and evidence to the podcast management. They immediately postponed Marcus's episode. Some even sent me private apologies. I also sent copies to a few independent journalists, those willing to dig deeper if the story was real enough. And it was painfully real. For the first time, someone believed me. A few weeks later, I got a call from the police. "We've begun a new investigation into Mr. M, your father. We'll need further cooperation from you." I put the phone down, feeling a little lighter, but before I could even exhale, a message came from my mother. "If you keep going, you'll destroy this whole family. Please stop. I beg you." I went silent. It was the first time she'd ever used the words "I beg you," but this time I didn't stop, because the family I once knew had died a long time ago. Chapter 7. Exposing the Destroyer and the Final Slip. My mother told me I was destroying the family. But the truth is, they had done that themselves long ago. I was just turning on the lights for everyone to see. I thought I'd prepared for every scenario, for every counterattack my father might throw, but I underestimated the desperation of someone losing control. It started with spam emails sent to my company inbox with subject lines like, "Do you want to avoid a psychopath?" attached to photoshopped images of me plastered with insane words. Nobody at work believed those slanders anymore thanks to an internal meeting I personally set up to clear things up. But elsewhere, neighbors, the online community, even some parents of kids I'd once counseled weren't so lucky. My father, he actually started a YouTube channel. Yeah, that's right, a YouTube channel. The channel was called Raising Warriors. The avatar was my father, standing with his arms crossed with Marcus in the background, doing push-ups until his hands bled. In the first video, he wore a camo shirt, stood in front of an American flag backdrop, and spoke in a solemn tone like a Sunday preacher. My son, the one I once loved with all my heart, has now turned his back, made up stories, and hurt the very man who gave him life. This is the consequence of leftist education and a society that's gone soft. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The comments below the video were a chaotic mix of people supporting him and others calling him a backyard Napoleon. But a few comments sent chills down my spine. "I know where he lives," sending some buddies to knock on his door. "Filial traitors like him deserve street justice." I sent screenshots to the police. They said it wasn't enough to qualify as a direct threat to life. And then it happened. One afternoon on my way to meet my lawyer, my car was rammed from behind so hard the airbags deployed. When I got out, the driver sped away. The license plate was covered with black tape. The police said it could have been an accident, but I knew it was a warning. But what my father didn't expect was a reaction from the person he always saw as a tool. Marcus. One night, Marcus called me for the first time in months. His voice was exhausted, raspy, like he'd just finished a marathon. "You got a camera?" I said I did. He was silent for a while, then said something that made me freeze. "I've got what you need. In return, you have to help me disappear." I was stunned, but I agreed. The next day, Marcus sent me a USB stick containing a recording of my father talking to an investor about plans to open a training camp for kids. He said, "Outright kids are weak. You just have to scare them enough, and they'll listen." My youngest son was just like them. Look at him now. Consider that a lesson. I nearly threw up, but the worst was yet to come. One of the boys attending the Raising Warriors boot camp, a 12-year-old, was hospitalized with a shoulder injury. His parents spoke out. My father denied everything. Marcus vanished. I sent the recording to the press, and for the first time, public opinion swung my way. My father went live to defend himself, screaming, face red as fire, calling me the snake in the house, an ungrateful traitor. But I said nothing. No responses, no posts. I let him expose himself, because for the first time in my life, I didn't have to shout to be believed. All I had to do was stand still and let the truth speak for itself. Chapter 8. My mother witness victim or accomplice. I once believed that if anyone in the family could ever wake up, it would be my mother. I was wrong, or at least only half right. When the Raising Warriors camp videos went viral, when the recordings Marcus sent me began to spread widely, my mother stayed silent. Not a single apology, not even a message to ask how I was. Instead, she appeared on a local talk show wearing a crisp white shirt, her makeup flawless as if this were just a casual tea party. She said, "My son. He's suffering from severe psychological issues that nobody wants to talk about. Our family loves him. We've tried, but sometimes love just isn't enough." Yes, she called me him. Meanwhile, my father kept live streaming every week, now selling merch, t-shirts printed with Painbuild's men, and caps embroidered with the camp's logo. The only thing he didn't anticipate was patience, because in silence I kept collecting evidence. Marcus, though our relationship was anything but good, kept sending me documents, photos, papers, old recordings, even a digital diary entry of my mother's he found on an old hard drive. One entry read, "Today, the boy had a nosebleed again from standing in the sun too long. I wanted to run out, but Marcus said, 'Dad will be angry if you interfere.' So I stood still. He cried, and I did too. But I still stood still. Some parts were even more horrifying, describing in detail the exercises my father demanded, from forcing me to drink fish sauce with chili because men should handle pain, to making me run laps around the house on bare knees across the concrete floor. My mother documented it all, but she did nothing. Not once. At that moment, I was angry, shaking with rage. Why didn't she speak up? Why did she let it go on all through my childhood? But then, I read the final entry in her diary. I thought about running away. I actually tried, but he found me. That time I lost a front tooth. I used to be a victim. Then I became an accomplice because I was afraid, and I understood. Long-term fear doesn't just make people silent. It turns them to stone, frozen, doing nothing, saying nothing, saving no one, not even their own child. The day I went to court to submit new evidence, my mother appeared unexpectedly. She didn't look at me, just set an envelope on the table. Inside was a recording I never expected my mother to have kept, a family meeting when I was 13, where my father forced me to confess to making Marcus weak by asking if he could skip a training session. In the recording, I was sobbing. My father screamed, "If I see you cry again, I'll strangle you with a rope." My mother said nothing on the tape. But the fact that she kept it and gave it to me was her first real statement. That night, I got the news. The Raising Warriors camp was suspended. An 11-year-old boy had broken his collarbone after being forced to do push-ups on gravel. Parents began pulling out. Sponsors canceled contracts. My father lost control. On his final live stream, he cried and screamed, "You people are killing the future of America. My son is a traitor, a coward, but it doesn't matter because I still have a real son, Marcus." Then the video cut off. The next day I received word Marcus had run away. The police couldn't find him. And my father, he was arrested for illegal weapons possession, found in his car trunk, along with a list of names. My name was at the top, my mother's at the bottom. Chapter 9. Facing the Darkness and the Price of Truth. I saw my own name written in bold red ink at the top of the list the police found in my father's car. It wasn't just a list, it was a verdict, a formal declaration of war. The police told me he called it a retraining list. I called it what it truly was, a death list. Marcus was still missing. But what made me shudder most wasn't wondering where Marcus was. It was the certainty that wherever he was already planning his next return. And next time, it wouldn't just be media manipulation or mocking online posts, it would be real, life or death. Sophia had already packed her things before I even got home. She didn't leave me. But the look in her eyes, the fear lurking behind every hug told me that love was running on empty. She only said one thing. If I disappear for a while, it's not because I don't love you. It's because I can't love you the right way when both of us are living in a trench. I didn't beg her to stay. I just stood there and nodded quietly. Because I understood. And because I too had reached my breaking point. I lost my job. My reputation was destroyed. The children I once helped were now being led away by warrior types like my father. One night, I looked at myself in the mirror and wondered if I disappeared tomorrow, would anyone still believe I'd once been a good person? I had to do something. So I started with the weakest link myself. I went back to a digital forensics expert, hiring them with the last of Sophia's money to investigate every bit of digital data my father used to coordinate the smear campaign against me. We uncovered the map of the entire communication system, fake emails, virtual social media accounts, IP addresses routed through VPNs from different countries, but all with one thing in common. They were set up and managed from a device registered to my mother. I didn't know if I should feel heartbroken or relieved. My mother, in the end, was a link in the chain. I went to see her for the first time in months, carrying a hard drive and not a single word of reproach. I simply played the recording my father had left where he told Marcus he has to break. When he's at his weakest, I'll give him a chance to start over, but this time my way. My mother sat still. Then she reached out and stroked my hair, a gesture I couldn't even remember the last time she'd done. I know your father wants to kill you, she said. But what he doesn't know is that there's a part of you I want to die too, the part that will never be able to trust me again. That night, she signed her statement. She handed over passwords and devices. The next day, I got a call from the federal investigators. My mother's evidence was the last piece needed for the expanded case against my father, who now wasn't just charged with assault, but also with money laundering, orchestrating reputational attacks, and violating federal child protection laws. But this wasn't a victory. There was no triumphant music as I walked out of the police station. No relatives patting me on the back, no community gratitude. There was only me and an empty car. Marcus was still not caught. No one knew where he was. My father sat in his cell, but even at the preliminary hearing, his eyes shot me the same deadly looks as when I stood in the backyard holding a concrete block in the sun. I won, but it didn't feel like winning. It felt like a funeral dirge for my childhood, for Sophia, for the part of me that once believed a family is untouchable. Chapter 10. An ending without an end. I thought everything would be over after my father was arrested. I was wrong, foolishly believing that if the one who caused the pain was punished, the wounds would just heal on their own. But no, life doesn't operate on the logic of justice. It operates by memory, and memories are never locked away. Marcus is still missing, but somewhere online I catch glimpses of him. A new account has appeared called Real Strength Coach. Short videos about disciplined masculinity, awakening the beast within, and men don't cry all sound so familiar. I know it's him. At my father's final trial, he still denied all wrongdoing. He called me a prodigal son, molded by twisted media and education. Not a flicker of remorse. My mother sat in the back row, neither crying nor smiling. She simply nodded as the judge announced a 6-year prison sentence. I didn't feel relieved. I just felt empty. Sophia and I, we still talk. But it's the kind of conversation between two people who once loved each other and now can only wish each other peace. She told me, "You survived, but I hope one day you learn how to live. I understand that more than ever. As for work, I didn't return to my old center. Even though my reputation was restored once everything was made clear, I knew I was no longer the same person. The wounds were too deep for me to stand in front of those kids without casting my own shadow over them. Instead, I started a small group, a private space for people who had been victims of family violence. No signs, no media, just a few people sitting together speaking the truths they'd never dared say before. I called it Real Men Feel. One day, a 17-year-old boy came in. He didn't say a word, just sat quietly. And before he left, he wrote 3 words on the whiteboard: I'm still alive. That's all. And I knew that was the reason I was still here, not to defeat anyone, but to prove that survival is a victory too. My story has no ending, because healing is a journey, not a destination. And I'm still walking it step by step, on the very path my father once forced me to kneel on, but now I'm standing on my own 2 feet. I'm not telling this story to seek pity or forgiveness. I'm telling it to say to anyone living in a cage called family, you're not crazy, you're not weak, and you are not alone. Sometimes being strong isn't about hitting someone hard. It's about daring to step out of what people call tradition. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. If you've ever been through something similar, or simply want to share, the comment section below is a safe place for that. And if you feel this story deserves to be heard, please leave a like, share, or subscribe to the channel. Because here, we tell real stories from real people who are still fighting to become their true selves.